I think the moment where everything changed for me was around 4 weeks after Solve for Happy. I got a message from a wonderful lady in Switzerland. She said, my son left our world after a struggle with a stage 4 cancer last week. My daughter took her life 2 weeks before because she couldn't bear his pain. So I took my husband, we went to the mountains, we took your book. Thanks for saving our lives.
Welcome back to Crisis What Crisis, the podcast that aims to guide you towards a more resilient life and whatever it might throw at you. If this is your first time with us, then do please hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. And please do leave us a review because it really helps make sure that these, I hope, useful conversations are shared as widely as possible. Mo Gawdat is a former Chief Business Officer at Google X and the best-selling author of Solve for Happy, Scary Smart, and most recently Unstressable, a practical guide to mastering resilience. He's currently working on Alive, a collaborative exploration into the emotional and existential implications of AI that we'll dive into in a special AI episode next week. Today, Mo is one of the most thought-provoking voices on the intersection of technology, human resilience and happiness. His journey has taken him from the boardrooms at the world's most powerful tech companies to some of the darkest places a human being can go, following the devastating loss of his son Alli in 2014.
The only answer to a crisis in my mind is on the emotional side, to embrace and feel and sit in your emotion, but then understand on the logical side that the emotion is not going to make things better.
Mo has since devoted his life to answering the biggest questions we face about how we cope, how we grow, and how we can live well in a world full of uncertainty and anxiety.
Ali's never going to come back. So, can I do something to fix it? Can I do anything to bring him back? No, I cannot. So can I accept this new reality of my life? But instead of staying at the bottom of the worst moment in my entire life, okay, can I do something to make tomorrow better than today and after tomorrow better than tomorrow?
So this is a conversation about crisis, about loss, about grit, and about happiness, with a man loaded with the experience and the wisdom to help us make sense of it all.
This is the most unusual podcast I've ever done, Andy.
Mo Gawdat, welcome to Crisis What Crisis.
Too much pressure, Andy. They're going to expect something impressive now. Don't do that to me.
Having met you before, Mo, I know you won't disappoint. But yes, no pressure. Make us happy, Mo. Yeah. Make us happy.
Exactly. It's like, okay, Mo, now I'm going to shut up and you make everyone happy. Yeah.
Off you go. Off we go. I may chuck in the odd question, Mo. The odd question. Look, when we last saw each other, when you were kind enough to invite me onto your brilliant podcast, Slo Mo, you told me that you were essentially carrying out a brutal audit on your life. That I think the phrase you used, the slow slippage of time, had caused you to strip back what you were doing and focus only on the projects that really mattered to you. How did that work out, Mo?
Better than I expected, to be honest. So for context for those listening, I am very conscious of the fact that my life goes through very clear and distinct seasons. And that, what applies, and motivates me very heavily in one season might be the exact opposite of what motivates me in other seasons. And I've always worked really hard. I've always worked on myself and worked for targets and worked for just basically constant improvement, if you want. And I've never really noticed the shift between the time when I was a very senior corporate executive and the time when I became a creative, if you want. And my life now is much more, the life of a creative than it is of an executive. So when I left Google back in 2018 and I started my 1 billion happy mission, I ran that like I ran Google X, basically numbers, targets, reviews, objectives, efficiencies, and so on. And while that mattered, at least at the launch, period of the mission, it prevented me from what a creative does, which is to wake up one morning at 3 a.m. in the morning, inspired to write something very important, and not really care because there are no meetings in the morning. And and I was failing at that. When we met, I had 17 projects running at the same time. Most of them are full-time jobs, like my podcast, Slo Mo, was a full-time job. And most of them were very successful and rewarding. I mean, Slo Mo was in the top five of well-being podcasts worldwide, top 20 in North America. So it was quite difficult for me to start prioritizing. And I did. So I now do four things and four things only, and all of them stem from my life as a creative. And as a result of that, I'm much more effective. I enjoy my writing a lot more. And believe it or not, I go much further than where I was going with 18 or 17 projects. And so I canceled Slo Mo. I don't touch social media other than answering messages. Interestingly, I completely changed my approach to social media so that I'm not the center, but basically I'm on other people's platforms like yours today. Don't care how many followers I have as long as millions get the message, if you want. And yeah, and I canceled so many of my little crazy ideas. At the time I had Minimo, which was um an AI avatar that basically repeats my messages. And I thought, first of all, it's never going to get this silly accent right. And second is maybe it's better for people to send the questions to me so I answer them personally and keep that human touch. And in general, I've been doing really well, traveling less, engaging more in what I think makes a real difference, which is the deep thought that hopefully analyzes the complex challenges that the world is facing and sharing that.
We possibly need a separate series. Quite how I'm going to persuade you to be able to share more of this, I don't know. I'm very conscious, though, of the slippage of time, to use your phrase, and I'm very keen to talk about you. If I can I start by talking about Alli, your son, the most profound of crises for you and your family in 2014. I suppose my question is, before we move on to how you put your grief to work, if I can put it that way, can I ask you how you managed that period of time, in the weeks and months, immediately after Alli's death? I ask that question because anger and bitterness are themes on this podcast. And I should explain that Alli died unexpectedly, very tragically, as a result of an operation, a routine operation to have his appendix removed that went wrong because of human error. That, one imagines, caused a fair amount of anger, at least at some period of time. So can I ask you how you managed that, please, in those first weeks and months?
It didn't cause anger, interestingly, but I'll come to that in a minute. I have to just first start by saying my perception of death is very spiritual. So I don't think death is the end, and I think that really helps when you understand that. And that's not because of a spiritual belief or a religious teaching. That's actually because of my mathematical application of an understanding of life and death, if you want. And we can talk about that again, probably in a totally separate podcast. But if you apply mathematics and physics to the question of life and death, we don't really die. We transform from your non-physical form being connected to your physical avatar to a state where your non-physical form puts the controller down. But your non-physical form, your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it, continues. So this is a very, very core belief to me that makes it a little more um, bearable, a little more bearable that Ali leaves. A conviction in my mind that the only thing that is certain about this life is that sooner or later I will be where he is.
Was that a conviction that you had before you lost Ali, or is that something that a conclusion that you've come to after?
I mean, don't be fooled by the fact that I can speak a bit of English. I'm quite a mathematics bug, if you want. So I know this sounds really weird. So again, don't be fooled that I have social skills. I am very much on the spectrum, and I see the world very, very differently. And everything I see through mathematics first. So I basically apply applied mathematics in a very deep way to understand exactly what the possibilities are before I can speak to anyone about them. And when I was 16, I grew up in Egypt. Egypt is a very conformative Islamic country, and so you're expected to belong to Islam somehow. And Islam is integrated in the society in a way where you get even the words of the language include a lot of spiritual words in them, religious words in them. And so I decided, okay, I'm okay with that, but maybe if I'm going to spend my life to a religion, I might as well verify the hypothesis. Again, a very scientific approach to things. Is there a God? And so I did what I normally call the mathematics of the divine, which is chapter 14 in Solve for Happy, which in my I simplified the math a lot in chapter 14, but in my very complex analysis, it basically told me that from a probabilities point of view, while all of the hypotheses of Big Bang, evolution, natural selection are okay, they are not probabilistically enough to create this complexity, and that you need intelligent design as a part of that. And that intelligent design is a bit analogous to what you see on a video game, right? You're in a video game, very complex game world, very clear characteristics of physics, and and engagement of non-player characters, and so on and so forth. It appears to be a very, very rich experience, but in reality, when you're in it, you're experiencing it. You can easily imagine that this was not random. There was a team of developers that wrote that. Okay. And so if there is a designer, then by definition, the designer exists outside the game console. And if that is the case, then we all exist outside the game console. This is exactly what the theory of relativity and the understanding of space-time dictates. This is very, very, aligned with what the uncertainty principle of quantum physics dictates. And so in my mind, I basically decided that my physical form is not me. And believe it or not, since age 16, I've almost entirely lived two journeys. One was to improve the prospects of my physical avatar in this physical world, as if it's a video game, but also to improve the prospects of the one holding the controller beyond the video game. And again, when you think of relativity, just as a simple example, where space-time already exists for all of us, all of space and all of time, that basically means that there is, that the observer of space-time has to have a subject-object relationship. So you cannot see planet Earth when you're on it. You have to leave it and go to space to be able to see it. And so for us to observe the arrow of time, we have to exist outside space-time. At least our consciousness has to exist outside space-time. And as a result of that, that basically means that we don't experience time, that time does not apply to our real selves. And that means that Ali was not born before me. Ali's physical form was, sorry, after me. Ali's physical form was born after me. Ali's physical form decayed before mine, but that Ali's essence exists during, before, and after. That life always exists. So I know this is not the topic of this podcast, and I know I keep taking you to corners that are very complicated. I just wanted to say that without a conviction that the end of your physical form is not the end of your life, it becomes extremely hard to forgive. With that in mind, then the rest is basically stoic. A very, and I know that from our conversation on my podcast that you understand this. There is an important understanding that your anger, your frustration, your despair, your guilt, whatever, all of those emotions, which should be felt, should be acknowledged, should be even embraced, if you ask me, and then dealt with, none of them brings Ali back. So that is, I think, a very core part of my approach to life in general. This is why I talk to people about artificial intelligence so openly with a lot of conviction, because, if I worry and sit in a corner and do nothing about it, that doesn't improve the prospects of the situations, right? So the only answer to a crisis in my mind is, on the emotional side, to embrace and feel and sit in your emotion, but then understand on the logical side that the emotion is not going to make things better, right? And that from one side you have a responsibility to yourself, and from the other side you have a responsibility to others to make things better. That the moment when Ali left our world was literally the low point of my life. It couldn't get worse, right? And today, after 1 billion happies, almost reaching 100 million people, uh, I think my life is a lot better than that moment, right? And that's not because I stayed in the misery, and it's also not because I jumped out of the misery. It's because I allowed myself to take a tiny step every day to make today a little better than yesterday. Okay. And I think if anyone, whatever the crisis, uh, takes that approach of, I'm just going to make sure that today I take one tiny step that makes the life and my life and the life of those that I care about a little better today, then that's really what resilience is all about.
Mo, you've talked about feeling Ali's presence sort of continually since you lost him. Can I ask, 11 years later, has that connection to him changed or deepened with time? Do you sort of characterize it as a conversation, or is it's a feeling? And if it is, how's it changed?
He was in my dream yesterday, hugging me so truly, so truly. It's funny that you said that now. Now we're going into the people hanging up and saying, "Oh my God, he's a nutcase." I If your consciousness resides outside your physical form, then intuition is your ability to connect to that consciousness without using the physical sensors, right? And there are multiple scientific experiments that actually prove that. Which was very famous. I think the book was called My Big Toe, if I remember correctly, about a CIA agent that experimented, a scientist that experimented with CIA agents on what is known as remote viewing. And remote viewing is the ability to see something that is at a distance. And he took 50 random agents, no pre-qualifications, showed them a very specific meditation that basically sort of disconnects you a little from your physical form. And every single one of them was capable of remote viewing, every single one, which is quite shocking, really. Of course, you can see that those who are a little more connected with their feminine are a little more connected with their intuition, and so a little more connected with sensing things that cannot be explained. So if the possibility that our non-physical form does not decay exists, and that my non-physical form is the one holding the controller of my avatar, a bit of an ability to connect to my non-physical form allows me to connect to other non-physical forms. And I know that sounds very unscientific, and I acknowledge that. I cannot prove this with the scientific method, but I can tell you that on Ali's birthday, January 14th, 2020, Ali explicitly told me the plague is coming. Okay, and I texted my coach and I said, Ali explicitly told me the plague is coming and it's moving fast. What does that mean? And she sent me a few things and saying, oh, maybe that's the spiritual interpretation of plague and blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, COVID happened. Okay. Uh, so these kinds of very, very clear links, and I have countless of them, yeah, I mean, again, worthy of a full podcast, that allow me to, when I open my heart to them, they're very clear messages. By the way, that message that he sent me on January 14th, 2020, also basically had a very angry message that basically said, you're too late writing the AI book. And I was at the time still writing Finders Keepers, which is a book I wrote 7 times but never published, about love and relationships. And he was like, "You're wasting our time." And it was actually in a very angry tone. And I was basically like, "Okay, fine." And so I sat down, especially when COVID happened, and wrote Scary Smart in 2.5 months. And look at how far that has come, because Scary Smart has definitely given me a sort of a heard voice in the AI space, because I could predict the following 5 years so accurately. And I think that would have probably been the only chance I would have ever had to influence anything at all. If I didn't write Scary Smart, I wouldn't have been able to speak about AI.
Mo, let's just talk about the legacy that you've created in Ali's name. You've touched on it briefly. 1 billion happy, an extraordinary initiative. Put simply, a goal to make 1 billion people happier. And this is linked, of course, to AI, because if you can do that, the input of happier people has to be, the result of that has to be a more productive, safer output.
Can I explain that in a minute? Because
Please.
Most people don't understand. So 1 billion, the AI pillar is a very important pillar of the happiness mission, right? Because so the happiness mission has happiness, stress, incessant thinking, love and relationships, empowering the feminine, and AI. These were always the 6 pillars, right? And they are basically, imagine a world where we could actually show humans how to to not be stressed through Unstressable, or the work with the book, or the community, or whatever. But then AI comes and stresses everyone. Okay, so definitely there is a very strong link between learning to be happy as part of 1 billion happy, and removing the reasons for unhappiness. And AI, a rogue AI, or abuse of AI is a big reason for that.
So tell us where you are with 1 billion happy. Tell us how you're doing it. What is if there's a sort of a mission statement for us, all as individuals in this, what is it?
There has always been a mission statement, which was to get 1 million people to champion 1 billion happy, to spend all the money I've made at Google making that happen, and then to die completely forgotten. And so it's a very intriguing mission statement, because in a very interesting way, it's quite capitalist in a way, because I'm almost trying to die as a billionaire, but a billionaire of not of dollars, which is a very, very, very interesting target to have. I'm trying to convert the dollars that I was blessed with, which my daughter always tells me I've been paid in advance through my Google years and other businesses in my life, to happy champions that actually take the message to 1 billion people, even after I go. And very importantly, that I get forgotten as part of that mission, because then the mission can continue after I go. Right?
Why does the mission require you to be forgotten?
Because for a fact, you and I think, align very strongly on that the world we live in does not want 1 billion happy, at least not at the top. And so accordingly, there will be a moment in time where someone will vilify me, or someone will try to cancel me, or someone will associate too much with me. And then I leave, and then the mission collapses, right? Or I'm removed, and then the mission collapses. And I believe that one of my best ever strategies on 1 billion happy was, because I mean, honestly, also because I am a very serious introvert. I know it doesn't look like it. That I never wanted to have my own big following on social media. So I'd have something like, I think now, 250,000 people on Instagram, but my videos are watched tens of millions of times. But they're watched on your platform and Stephen Bartlett's platform and Anas Boukhish's platform and so on. So basically, that idea of you and Stephen and others get the credit, and I'm just communicating a thought, and then the mission continues, is a very powerful idea in my mind. I hope it continues that way. The trick here is very straightforward. I'm trying to give you a message, as a listener or a reader or whatever, that tells you that happiness is your birthright, that you were born happy, and that you have every right to be happy, and that happiness is a choice. If you make it, you can actually become happier, just like going to the gym. You go to the happiness gym, you'll become happier, maybe not absolutely happy all the time, but happier. And if I can get that message to someone, and they, as a result, make a choice to either invest in their own happiness or in the happiness of another, then they count as one where the mission has been achieved, right? So if I can, if people listen to this podcast and then decide, oh, interesting, let me look at more work from this guy, and so they go and watch more videos, and then they share those videos, and then in one of those videos I refer to a conversation I had with Deepak Chopra, for example, so they go and listen to that. Basically, from Deepak they move to others and so on. Basically, as soon as people start to invest in their happiness and the happiness of those they care about, then they're part of the mission, right?
Wonderful.
When I started, as I told you, my season then back in 2017 was the mindset of the chief business officer of Google X. So I was measuring everything, and if you remember, the triggering event for me to leave Google was there was a Channel 4 clip that went super viral, 7 million views first day, 37 million views by day 3, which was the highest ever watched clip in the history of Channel 4 by the time. And then 87 million views by a week later or something like that. I think it's now like 112 million views or something like that. But the point is, very quickly that virality convinced me that and people were taking actions. They were either watching that clip and then going to look for other happiness clips, or watching that clip and forwarding it to others. This basically proves that that the mission is working, that people get the message and say, okay, I'm going to invest in myself, or I'm going to tell others about it.
How does that make you feel, Mo? Because you talk about the numbers, which are epic, but I'm interested to know how that makes you feel.
It's a very, very interesting question. I think it's because of my brain defect. Somehow, I don't see the difference between 100 million and one. I swear I'm not just making a fancy slogan.
But the numbers
To,
matter
to,
to you.
they don't. They honestly don't. So one of the reasons, again, I don't share. You're preying on our friendship because I'm sharing things that I don't share in public normally. Uh, uh, um, one of the reasons why I started to change my perspective of my current season is I honestly believe there is enough content out there that we've achieved as a small team, or a small team of four. When I say we, uh, that we've achieved so much in the last 7 years, that if we all disappear right now, this mission is going to continue. So I really cannot even imagine that I'm saying this, but 1 billion happy will happen. It will happen. It will happen probably after I go, but it is 6 degrees of separation, and If everyone that gets the message tells two people who tell two people who tell two people, we will get there. Six degrees of separation, probably 72 years or something like that. And so it is actually quite staggering to be in that place. But the ones that really matter are the one-to-ones. Because numbers and stats and spreadsheets, and these are not human. You can intellectualize them, right? But you don't feel them. If you think about it. I think the moment where everything changed for me was around 4 weeks after Solve for Happy. I got a message from a wonderful lady in Switzerland. She said, my son left our world after a struggle with a stage 4 cancer last week. My daughter took her life 2 weeks before because she couldn't bear his pain. So I took my husband, we went to the mountains, we took your book. Thanks for saving our lives.
Goodness.
And I still cry every time.
Just take a moment, Mo.
I cannot believe I was given this privilege in this life. Cannot believe it. I don't know what I did to qualify for this. I honestly don't. But imagine, right? One person, that's all you care about. One person is all you care about. And so I wake up every morning and I just try to get one person. That's all I try to do. And if I do it well today, then we're one person closer. If I don't, then tomorrow I will try to get one person. And sometimes life is very generous. Sometimes I get 1,000 people or a million people. But it's always one person. So the numbers really don't mean much to me, honestly. I think what matters to me is that every day is spent genuinely trying the best that I can. Now, the reason this affects me so much is because there is so much misery in our world, Andy. There is so much wrong in our world today. And my wonderful wife hugged me back in December 2023. Because then, stupid as I am, I thought it was my responsibility to take that misery away. You see, being born and raised in Egypt, then becoming chief business officer of Google X or vice president of emerging markets for Google gives you that false impression that you can actually make a difference, that you can, champion a concept and get it to 4 billion people or a billion people or whatever. When you realize very quickly that you're the tool that gets the message. The message was distant to get to people. You're just the tool that gets it there. And what a privilege. What a privilege to have been chosen as that tool.
Mo, do you allow yourself any pride? What's your relationship with pride? Because anyone listening to this, anyone who's been touched in the way that you've described by any of your content, I know I was in reading Solve for Happy, would just, there's gratitude at the end of the recipient, but there should be pride in what you've done as well.
There are a few emotions. There are a few emotions that are genuinely wonderful. Okay. Genuinely real. Love is real. Gratitude is real. Compassion is real. Empathy is real. And there are a few emotions that are so fucking stupid. Honestly. And
you put pride on that list, do you?
100% pride, regret, guilt. These are so stupid. They are absolutely, utterly stupid emotions.
Pride can be quite empowering, though, can't it, as well? Can't pride?
Oh, come on.
A sense of self-worth, isn't it?
What have I done to deserve where I am? Seriously, question that. Question how many born and raised in Egypt Egyptians did not get where I am. Okay, question the amount of luck that happened on my path. Question that brain I was given for absolutely no contribution on my side, that got mathematics to a point that most of my teachers didn't get, right? And then question, the blessings that were poured on me in that process. Okay,
Of
and then
course.
tell me what do I have to be proud of?
Of, Mo, if the human endeavour is to take what you've got through, as you say, you can take no responsibility for the
No
blessings that you.
contribution
No,
whatsoever.
absolutely, that I totally accept. But surely human endeavour is about accepting that, taking that, and seeing what on earth you can do with it, right? And that
Yes,
should
but
be
Andy,
surely
if
a
I
source of
if I
pride for
didn't
you.
if I didn't get that IQ, or if I didn't get that mathematical ability, or if I didn't meet the people that I met on the way, I'll give you a very simple example. Florian Zink, one of my very good friends, used to run my Eastern European business at Google. So I was vice president of emerging markets for 7 years. He ran the Eastern European business at Microsoft. I'm really sorry. So I was director of emerging markets for the communication sector. Florian was running Eastern Europe. He had a child. He came to me and said, Mo, I love you very much, but I really want to spend more time with my child, so I need to find a job in Germany. He was German. And so I said, okay, I'll help you. Spoke to the country manager of Germany and said, he's a fantastic guy. Would you take him in your organization? So a few weeks later, we were at a business conference in Rhodes. I remember vividly, having a coffee, chatting, and then I get a call from the general manager of Germany saying, we're going to take Florian as sales manager. And so I tell Florian, he is over the moon, right? He calls his wife and says, darling, I'm going to stay home from now on. And even if I travel, it's going to be one day and back and forth in the same day. Over the moon. Puts his phone down and his phone rings and it's a headhunter hunting him for Google. Right? I kid you not. Florian said, oh, no, 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 I'm not interested anymore, but I know the exact right guy. And he hands me the phone. Like, seriously. Okay? I mean, talk about luck, huh? Talk
Yeah.
about, of course, I worked my ass off afterwards, right? But without that interesting twist where life, like my daughter tells me, my daughter is so wise. She always says, you've been paid in advance. Because honestly, I don't deserve what I was given. I honestly don't. If I, by the end of my life, get 1 billion happy to half of the path, then maybe I've earned what I've been given. I'm very okay because I try the best that I can. Understand? So this is one of the things I teach about happiness is that most of us are always motivated by the negative. Just like the days in school, it's like, you really don't have to tell a child that they're stupid for them to try harder. You can tell them they're amazing, but they can do better, right? And I think that mindset of, yeah, I promise you, I've tried the absolute best I can every day of my life. I really, really I'm contented with that.
Mo.
This is the most unusual podcast I've ever done, Andy.
Well, we're going to discover whether that's a good thing. I think it is, Mo, and I know I'm incredibly grateful. Before I let you go, though, I'm gonna sort of seek the impossible, because we started this podcast by saying that we undertake to ensure that the listener leaves this podcast happier than they came to it. So I think we're well on our way to doing that. I hope the listener and viewer will be the judge. But let's try and distill down your approach to happiness, your formula for happiness, to 3 things. If you want those listening, watching, to remember 3 things in the pursuit of happiness, what would it be?
3 questions.
Or what would they be?
How about that?
Yeah, great.
3 questions. We're going to have to assume that you're going to allow yourself to feel your emotions and acknowledge them and embrace them. Because without that, there's no point. There's no starting point. The starting point is, believe it or not, you're supposed to be happy. And if you deviate from that, you need to stop and ask yourself three questions, right? Uh, you know, question one is you look at the event that's triggering your happiness, your unhappiness, or your concern, or your anxiety, or whatever negative emotion that you're feeling. Okay. And then you look at the thought in your head that this event translates into, and you ask yourself, is this true? Okay, so allow me to explain that. You may have an argument. Let me give you a live example. My daughter is the love of my life, as you can easily see, and my daughter is an artist, and she and I were having a conversation around Spotify. I know, actually Apple Music at the time, where I was saying millions of songs is a bit too much, right? And she was saying, but that you're looking at it from a consumer point of view, you're not looking at it from an artist point of view, where the artist actually is able to, because they allow so many, then I have a chance to go and show my art. She's not a musical artist, she's a a multimedia artist. But the same concept applies. So we argued, right? And for some reason I was in my left brain, and a bit too autistic for my norm, and basically we argued. And so I said, okay, baby, let me just go have a cup of coffee, and then we can, I'll just clear my thinking, and then I come back and we speak about it. As soon as I go out of the building, my brain tells me Aya doesn't love you anymore. And I stopped I was in Montreal at that day. I stopped in the middle of the street, and I kid you not, I said out loud, like a crazy man, what the fuck did you just say? Your brain is trying to tell you a thought. The event here is we've argued around the value of choice in terms of, is it contributing or not to society? Okay. My brain translates that into your daughter doesn't love you anymore. Okay. When you see the event and see the thought, you ask yourself that first question, is it true? Okay. If it's true, if it's not true, drop it, right? If no, I invited me to breakfast in the morning, made me a wonderful coffee, hugged me when I walked in. My WhatsApp is full of kisses and hugs from my daughter. She explicitly said yesterday, I love you, right? So if it's not true, drop it. There's no point being unhappy about something that's not true. If it is true, you ask yourself the next question, okay? And the next question is, what can I do to fix it? Right? Which is so straightforward, because most of our unhappiness happens as a result of incessant thinking. Incessant thinking is to loop in circles around whatever thought your brain presented to you, okay? And stay in the loop to torture yourself. One of the easiest ways to get out of the loop is to ask yourself, a different part of your brain, what action can I take? What can I do to fix it?
What do you do if you don't know if it's true, Mo?
Truth is very straightforward. Anything. So this is a very interesting conversation. So anything for me is my brain looks at three compartments. One is true, one is false, okay, and one is what I call compartment two, which I think is very unusual in terms of assessing things. We're taught that if something is not true, it's false, right? But there are so many things that lie in the middle which we cannot prove. Okay? The trick here is as follows. If you know that something is false, and you know for a fact that it's false, you can behave as if it's false. If you know that it's true, and you know for a fact that it's true, you can behave as if it's true. If it's in the middle, if it's compartment two, as I call it, okay, then you're either supposed to not take action, not take decisive action, right? For or against. Or you're supposed to say, I'm going to solve it twice. If it was true, I'll do this. If it wasn't true, I'll do that. Okay? So I'll give you a simple example. We spoke about spirituality and life and death. There are multiple teachings that talk about what happens to us after we die. Right? Some will say heaven and hell. Some will say reincarnation. Some will say nothingness. Right? From a scientific method point of view, even though the mathematics indicate otherwise, there's absolutely no way we can observe what happens to us when we die, right? So you can tell yourself, oh, no, no, it's heaven and hell. My preacher told me it is true. Okay. That's too risky. Okay. Or you can tell yourself, I don't know, sir, what the British guy that keeps talking about there is no God told me there is no heaven and hell. Nothing happens after we die. So it must be false. Right. Or you can tell yourself it's in compartment two. I don't know if it's reincarnation. I don't know if it's heaven and hell. I don't know if it's nothingness. So I'm going to behave as if each of them is true. I'm going to solve the equation 3 times, right? And then make those choices so that I don't miss in any of them. It's quite an unusual approach, but probably the safest approach if you want. If you don't know if something is true or not true, you keep at it solving for all equations. So if the answer to my daughter doesn't love me question is I'm not sure, hmm, then I might as well start to make sure, do the steps that I need to make sure, right? And I might as well not assume only that she loves me and so accordingly continue to hug her and love her and be close to her, but also assume that there is a possibility she doesn't love me, so I need to work on ways to make her love me, right? And that I think is probably the one bit in my approach to everything, happiness included, that is a little too hyper engineered, right? The idea that being stuck in a place without taking an action, okay, means that you're going to be stuck in that loop forever, a bit like the movie Inception, right? You don't want that. You always want to move gradually. Is it true? Yes, then I need to act on it. It's no, I basically dismiss it, okay? Or compartment two, I'm not sure, then I might as well find out and behave with the duality until I have certainty, right? The second question is, can I do something to fix it? To fix it, understand. We're going through economic times now, difficult economics time. My company is not going to make as much sales as last year. Uh, if you get that thought and it's causing you anxiety or fear or panic or whatever, you have to ask yourself, is it true? Is my company not going to make profits like last year? Or is it false? If it's true, hmm, uh, can you do something to fix that? Right? Because simply, uh, uh, there are decisions you can make around the product, around the pricing, around your relationship with the clients, around your costing, around your spend, around this and that, that can respond to that. Can I do something to fix it, to make sure that my profitability remains okay? Then do it. Okay? If you cannot, then you ask yourself question number 3, which is, can I accept it and do something to make my life better despite its presence? Okay? And I think that's the Jedi master level of happiness, if you ask me. Ali dies. Ali's never going to come back. So, is that true? Yes. Can I do something to fix it? Can I do anything to bring him back? No, I cannot. So can I accept this new reality of my life? But instead of staying at the bottom of the worst moment in my entire life, okay, can I do something to make tomorrow better than today and after tomorrow better than tomorrow, right? Can I accept it and do something I have the ability to do to make my life and the life of those I care about better, okay? And I call that the happiness flow chart, and I know it sounds really weird because I'm a geek, as you know, but it actually takes you from, when you practice it, it can take you from unhappiness to happiness in 7 seconds every single time. Mostly because most of what makes us unhappy is not worth the unhappiness.
It doesn't sound weird. It sounds fundamentally practical and doable.
It is practical, yeah.
And so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for this conversation, Mo. We've covered a fair amount of territory, but in some ways I feel like we've only just sort of started the conversation.
We could probably add 6 more hours, I think, for every one of those topics.
Easily. I know I would enjoy it. I would enjoy it. You are a remarkable man, Mo. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your your frankness, your generosity, your wisdom. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I'm very grateful for it. Mo Gawdat, thank you so much.
It's been always a joy to be with you, Andy. Thank you so much for your time and for inviting fighting me. And yeah, if we've helped one person today, then 1 billion happy happened.
If you've been left feeling inspired, please do leave us a review. And if you found this episode useful, we would be delighted if you would share it with your friends and network. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and if you hit subscribe, you'll find a lot more crisis conversations. Thanks, as ever, to the Crisis What Crisis team, Jane Sankey, Hannah Walker-Brown, Rex Fisher, Mabel Pickering, and the brilliant, brilliant people at Global. And thank you so much for listening.
Got to let go when you see